Well, hello.
Hi.
So we're speaking to Riddhi Dastidar today, and straight off to start with, Riddhi, you've been doing so much work with COVID mutual aid in India, and I think it's really topical right now, especially for this panel when we're talking about grief and solidarity, and how your personal work has kind of tied into the mutual aid work that you've been doing. Could you tell us a bit about that?
About mutual aid and how it intersects with my personal work.
Yes, that's what I meant.
Okay. So I think that I work as a writer primarily. I'm a writer and a reporter. So obviously, like when this was unfolding, it was both something that I was thinking about reporting on, as well as something that was intensely personal because I'm in Delhi, and when the crisis started unfolding, Delhi was one of the first places to like. It was absolutely bizarre, right? Because the national capital is running out of hospital beds. There's no oxygen. Like those first like weeks in April, I think it was like around 18th, 19th April is when I remember like the enormity of the situation really like sinking in because Twitter was full of these SOS requests and people were just dying. You could see them live tweeting themselves to death, you know. I mean, that's dark, but that's what it was. Um, I think time just stopped in a sense and I didn't work for I think almost a week. I didn't work on like normal like work stuff. So I kind of put aside my reportage and writing, and I was just volunteering along with a lot of other people in that time. I think in Delhi who were volunteering. So with people I knew from college, other writers, other journalists, especially who were like doing a lot of this work. And I was doing medical resourcing around that time, which is a fancy way of saying I was just calling like long lists of numbers to figure out where an oxygen cylinder was still available or where a hospital bed was still available because those things were running out from like minute to minute and nothing was updated on the portal on the website. So that was really difficult. So I think I'm writing an article about this, which should be out soon about this whole experience. But one of the last nights that I did medical resourcing, I think I was up till like 3 a.m. working on a case, and then the person died despite our best efforts. And a lot of people had already died that day, but I guess this one was a shock because I thought that, oh, okay, finally we have resolved this. I can go to bed. Like it's one win for me. And then they died, and I was devastated. And I felt really guilty. And it was a really bad situation. And then I was like, okay, if I have to just be okay and not have a complete breakdown, I need to do something else. I can't keep doing medical resourcing. But it just didn't feel right to go back to work and pretend that none of this is happening, which is how I started Mutual Aid India, which started really simply. Like I saw people like wanting to contribute on Twitter. There were like these tweet threads coming up about like, oh, here's a fundraiser, because everyone was scrambling. Also, like people who live abroad and who are South Asian and connected to India or just Indian and like studying abroad. They were also like trying to figure out what can we do, and like an easy thing to do is just give money, right? If you can't be on the scene, like there's always a need.
Right.
So I think I first asked on Twitter, like, okay, just send me verified fundraisers here. So it started with a tweet thread, and I had like okay-ish following on Instagram. So I just put it out in my stories that if I compile a list of campaigns that are, you know, working at the grassroots on COVID relief, on various things from like rations to like medical supplies, will you help me share it? Because I just saw it as a very small thing at the time, and a lot of people said yes. And so it just started as a Google document where I was taking these things and kind of organizing them together. Because what I saw was things were very disorganized and everyone was just kind of scrambling.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, I'm bossy and I organize things, so I can do this. And then I realized that I needed a lot more help. So I just asked on Instagram again, like, would you be willing to volunteer? And then some people I already knew, some I knew peripherally, and some I didn't know at all said yes. And that's how we kind of started putting this Google Doc together. And now it's grown a lot. So Mutual Aid India is now a team of like I think we are 12 core team members. And then I don't know, I think we have 30 to 40 like rotating volunteers who help us do this upkeep, but it's a website. We're constantly in touch with organizers on ground, and like we update, we track, and not just that, we like strategize, because people have kind of moved away from, I mean, in a sense, it feels like the crisis is over, but the thing is on ground. communities who are already marginalized, whether it's like a fundraiser that we're doing for trans people in like rural West Bengal, or now that Cyclone Yas, which is that's the name, but now that the
Yeah.
cyclone has come to, West Bengal and Odisha, the scene is really bad there. So it's just one thing after another, especially for marginalized communities. And people don't seem to want to. There's this whole thing about like veracity that I talk about a lot, where people only want to give funds to like big established like NGOs or things that are verified. But the problem is a lot of these grassroots collectives, say whether it's an Adivasi youth network in Bhopal who is running a crowdfunder and that was going directly to the bank account, they don't want to, donate to something like that or support something like that because they're like, oh, it seems sketchy. Why is it a direct bank transfer? But the thing is, if you were an Adivasi woman in India right now, it's entirely likely that you've been sidelined by policy intentionally. So it's entirely
Exactly.
likely that you don't have that capital. So yeah.
Exactly. So the sense I'm getting from hearing you, talk about what it's been overall is that the need of the hour is to organize, is to kind of crowdfund, is to, assimilate all of the help that can be done. And it almost sounds like it's, like you're in a situation of both desperation and, hyper focus at the same time, where you're trying to, put all of this together. And everything you're saying about people being disenfranchised and excluded from policy needing the most help, and therefore I'm also getting the sense of, like relative privilege, like not being able to, take some time for your grief particularly, or your, distress, because there's just so much more that needs to be done. And, that's immensely, just I'm just thinking more in terms of the enormity of the situation. And you do also report on mental health, and write about mental health. And I wanted to ask you how you've found yourself navigating your own grief and discomfort at this time.
Really poorly, to be honest. This is also the piece I think it's a coping mechanism, to be honest. A lot of the organizing work that I have been doing, which is kind of trying to use my platform and my networks to leverage as much as I can towards these grassroots collectives. Like, I think it's just a coping mechanism, because if I don't do something, I think I'm going to be more in shambles. But I've been having a really shit time. The sleep cycle is messed up. And now some time has passed. I've had to I'm working, I'm reporting, I'm writing, I have 100 things going on the side. So I think just like compartmentalizing, people have been really sweet. I've been getting just people I know from Instagram have been like sending me things like cake, which helps. I just randomly like cake will land up at my house. I'm like, okay, this is nice. So small things like that. But also I will say that again, Instagram has been a very useful feature during this time. Platform, like there was a handle that was organizing. I wish I could remember the name, but basically, they put together a therapy fund for people who, like, for COVID volunteers, or for just other people who may be vulnerable, for healthcare workers, things like that. And I live with I have OCD. I have really like severe chronic depression from time to time. I have ADD, just a whole bunch of stuff. So navigating normal life is difficult for me at the best of times. But during this time, especially, like, I've had like a spike in my OCD. So like, because of anxiety, so sleeping is really hard. Anyway, all this to say that I finally had like a session with a therapist that they had organized, and they were just doing this as volunteers last week. So they put together like 2 sessions per person, and so that was something that I think was really helpful and really nice that they did that. I think that's a really, really useful thing to do for people. But yeah, otherwise I think also having the network of Mutual Aid India, like the core team of people I talk to every day, like a lot of us are disabled, most of us are queer, I think, and just working like that as a workspace has been so nice, because during this time, another thing is workplaces, it's just felt so surreal that work carries on. Like everything is on fire, but like you still have to do your deadlines. And we have team members who will just come in and be like, okay, you know what, I'm really low on spoons, and no one is ever going to make them feel bad. It's just like, please take all the time. Like, people will bully you off the group. They'll be like, please go away, you're not supposed to be here. Take your like day off and then
Yeah.
come back. So it's been a really good space. It's been an ideal space, I would say. So that is helped.
Yeah. So in terms of mutual aid, I'm also sensing so much solidarity in the work you're doing. And I think the bit you shared about just receiving cake from someone on Instagram, I think it shows, to me at least, it shows how everyone's just trying to pitch in with, as much as they can in any way they can. And that has truly been, what else do you do in a time like this? And we were talking earlier about, also you and I, about how this business as usual, policy in a way, or like this attitude also does extend to creatives. And sometimes platforms like, I mean, you're a writer and you also write poetry on the side, you've been working on fiction. And at some level, the understanding seems to be that, this is also a time when great art is supposed to come out, which I personally disagree with, because so many of us are just trying to breathe and, navigate day-to-day life and just, take care of ourselves. And so I wanted to hear how you've been, grappling or not with that.
So I'm working on, I mean, I haven't written poetry in a long time, which I think has mostly to do with, I've just been on reporting brain, and reporting brain is very, very different from writing poetry. I think I disagree. Yeah, I don't think you can create great art at a time when, I was just talking to one of my friends who is an artist, Sonaksha. She does art direction for Mutual Aid India. And we didn't know each other at all really before this. And now we're like really good friends. But, a lot of, there's this whole view about how my art is my activism. And to a certain extent, like I agree with that. But I think at a time when like there is so much material need on ground, I personally would not say that my writing a poem is activism. My activism is organizing, rations. That is my activism. And I think that is something that is more important. Like the poet Kaveh Akbar, who is one of my favorite poets, has also said something. I mean, I'm paraphrasing very badly, but he said something several years ago, I think, which was something about like, how his writing poetry is not going to save anyone's life. Like, it's important. And yes, maybe it'll touch people, but he's not confusing the writing with the like work that needs to be done on ground. And I think I've really taken that to heart. Like, I agree. Writing is really important to me. Art is really important to me. Like, without it, yeah, I don't think life would be worth living. But in such an urgent situation, there's just other stuff to be done. So yeah, I mean, that's how I feel. And I have had to take a step back and work on some fiction. In fact, like just day before, I took like a day off to just workshop like 2 stories, because I had a deadline and I had to send them in, because there was this competition. And as a writer, as an artist, you keep having to send things to these places because they come with very like real rewards and recognition and agents and things that just come to you. So yeah, I mean, it felt very weird to like be in that world and try to like think of this fictional universe. And then when I came back, I felt really shitty because I don't know, it was just weird to be disconnected, I guess. I don't know how to phrase it better.
Well, this is also like, it's reminding me of a conversation that I had with a friend recently about how, when you said, when you quoted Kaveh Akbar and you said poetry is not going to save the world in a crisis. And my friend and I were talking about political art or political writing in particular, and how the best of it comes out, but we don't particularly know how the process works. There is bearing witness, there is documenting, there is writing down events and thoughts and feelings as they're happening, but a lot of it is also reflecting and reminiscing and looking back at a time after you've had the space to after you've had enough space to look back and also be in a position where you are in control of your craft enough to in many ways craft the enormity of the situation into a compelling story or a compelling piece overall. So what you just said gave me a lot of food for thought in general. And I do see you talking about that when you said had to write some fiction just to get it in for a deadline, but
Yeah.
you'll probably read it 2 months down the line, and then it'll be something else altogether.
Yeah, it's entirely likely.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Well, thank you for joining me and talking to me about this. And I hope you get a lot more cake through
Thanks. That's a
the
great
months to
wish.
come. And I just want to take a moment and, thank you, but also generally laud you for all of the great work that you've been doing, Riddhi. And
That's very kind. Thanks, Priyanka. Thanks for
thanks.
having me.